Hi, welcome to class number 3 of Watercolor Your World. Today is Blue Day, and I'm going to play just a little bit of a song. Elvis Presley singing about blue suede shoes, don't step on them. John James Audubon used blue paint for his Blue Jay painting, and Georgia O'Keeffe used blue paint for blue Morning Glory painting. Did you know that there's another artist who used blue to paint horses? Now, these are fairly realistic, but I've never seen an actual blue horse. Maybe that green one in The Wizard of Oz, but that wasn't real either. But as far as blue horses go, I don't think they exist. Well, the artist was Franz Marc. Photograph of him. He was born in Germany in 1880. He was with a group of painters who founded an important group who used a lot of color. They painted with expression and they painted with symbolism. They were known as expressionist artists. Franz studied a lot about animals. He loved them. He studied their anatomy. Picture of a horse skeleton here to show you. And it has disappeared. Anyway, he studied, here we go, there we go, sorry about that. He studied anatomy of animals so that he could draw them more effectively and studied where they live, and he thought about their inner worlds. Franz had his own ideas about color. He wrote in a letter in 1910 that yellow, let's go back to yellow here, is the female principle and it is a gentle color. Red is brutal and heavy. Blue is a masculine principle and it is spiritual. Franz Marc painted animals because to him they represented innocence. Horses especially represented freedom and pure spirit. He felt that combining animals with certain colors would show these things to the people who looked at his art. Expressionist artists waited to show the world, or wanted to show the world, how things felt instead of how they looked. They used extreme angles, flat forms, bright colors, and distorted views. Those are some of the things you might see in expressionist art. Franz painted several blue horse paintings, as many as 9, and we are using one entitled The Little Blue Horse. So we will start out taking a look at the black and white outline drawing of it that will help you draw it, and there's also a color one of that. So when I look at this and I look at the blocks, I see this funny looking tree that's not very real up in the upper block. A lot of mountains over here on the right. Down here is some landscape and the back end of the horse. Front end of the horse here and some plants. Oh, and I forgot the horse's head here. So from this grid, you can see that the horse starts right in the middle and it's pretty big. It takes up a lot of the room. Horses can be difficult to draw. So as an artist, if I look for shape, I see a kind of a circular area back here. So I could start out with a circle here, maybe not quite that big. And I could start out with maybe an oval or another circle up in here, kind of connect it with an oval, and I'm starting to see the back of the horse. Get rid of all this in the middle. The neck area is, I think it's a little bit long. Let's get rid of that, make it a little bit shorter here. The neck area is kind of like a triangle. So you could start by putting a triangle up here. And the head itself is also kind of like a triangle. Now remember, this is a rough sketch, but it's to get me started on drawing this horse. Now, this triangle should have been aimed down a little bit because his head is aimed down a little bit. Start to give him a nose here. Get rid of that here. Give him some mane up here. The ear is kind of like a triangle. Whoops. Okay, let's redo that a little bit. His nose is not quite that big. His neck comes down. Then the legs and well, I'll put the tail on. Let's add the tail to the horse right now. It's back here. The legs might be a little bit trickier to draw, but you could start out with just stick legs. Comes down like that, and then I'm going to give it a double leg back here. The legs get thinner as they come down to the ground. There's another leg here. These legs are really kind of splayed out in the front. And there's another leg back here. This is a very crude drawing, but it gives me an idea of what I need to draw that I have to refine it when I do my finished drawing. This is a funny tree up here. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but it's kind of like a bowl shape up here. And then we've got some leaves up in here. And the trunk comes down, and back behind the horse is the rest of the tree trunk. We have mountains up here. You don't have to be particularly fussy about how you draw these. And there's definitely cubist areas in this. If you remember Picasso doing those cubist things, very straight lines. I don't know what that is supposed to be, but it doesn't look natural to me. It's like a post of some kind. Or maybe it's meant to be a mountain area and he thought he would just do something fun and throw in something a little bit more cubist. So there are my plants. I don't think he actually has an eye. I feel better giving him a little bit of an eye. But that's my very basic horse drawing. He's pretty chubby. I'd say he's more like a pony. But that's what that looks like to get started. Then my finished drawing, did a lot of erasing, a lot of refining. I put up in here some circle areas and oval areas to kind of also show you what I was talking about, looking for shape. All the mountains, the trees, the plants, all of this. So I looked for shape, I looked for proportion. That means that the horse is this big and the tree is this big. The placement, all kinds of lines, some are straight, some are curved, and those cubist elements in that picture. Then I got out the crayons. I had a lot of fun with the crayons. They do take a while. I used the little picture that you have, this little color picture, but I also found later on a picture that was darker, and I kind of like this one. This will be in the video so that you can see what it looks like. A lot of black in this. So I used my black crayon, and I started filling in wherever I saw a lot of black in here. And I could even do more over in here. Some black over in here. I also used little bits of green because Franz Marc pretty much used colors right out of the paint box, you might say. Very, very primary and secondary colors without a whole lot of mixing. So that was my second step. Now my third step will be to add some color to it, and here's my actual piece of watercolor paper. And I think this time I'm going to put this on my little magnetic thing here so it doesn't curl up as I'm working on it. I hope that you have remembered to put the paper at the top where it should be. It's not tall and skinny, it goes to the side. It's more of a landscape way of using the paper. So I've also used white crayon in here, and you can't really see it, but there are some lighter areas on that horse. I used some white over in here and so forth. So when I begin to paint the blue, which I'm going to do now, it is not going to stick. I'm going to try to use not quite as much water so that it doesn't run so badly. It's not sticking to the black. Remember, it's called resist. Looks like I didn't put a whole lot of white on that horse, did I? But there's not a whole lot of white on that either, so maybe when it dries it will show up a little bit more. And I'm pretty much just using the pure blue on this. I could be adding, and I think I'll add just a little more black to where my crayon is to make it a little bit stronger in there. Remember, use the point. Still have a point. It's not a scrub brush. It's a paintbrush. So I'm putting a little bit of black in here too, so I have a little more of a shadowy look to this. If it starts to run, that's what you've got your tissue for, your paper towels, whatever you're using to absorb. Looks like I've gotten more blue on the brush than I did the first time. The less water you have, the darker your color will be. Okay, so there's my blue horse. The green over here is very strong. I'll put a little bit of that on as well. And it's the green in the paint box. It doesn't look like there's any mixing required. And I like the way the black lines show through this to show the resist. And it helps keep the paint from running together. So there are a lot of things in this picture, a lot of elements, artists would say. A lot to draw, and you want to get a really good drawing first before you do your crayon, and then after you do your crayon, that's when you want to start putting the paint on. Okay. Red up in here. Now, one thing I wanted to say about the red, and I think that that's as far as I'll go with this, there's a little bit of a shadow up in here. And on your color wheel, in your folder, you will see where the red is, and you will see that Across from red is green, and that is known as a complementary color. And it's used for shadows. I'm going to put a little bit of red up in here. Looks like there's red and orange mixed together up here. But I'm going to put just straight red up here for now. If I want a shadow up in here that looks like that, and I don't want it quite as dark as the black would look, let me fill this in here. Then I will dry off my brush a little bit, get a little more water, and get just a little bit of green up in here. Oh, a little too much. And get rid of it with that. A little bit more red over that. But you will start to get a shadow. Some people would say, oh, you've got an accident up there. But it's meant to look that way. I'm going to put a little bit of orange up in here too, I think. But if you want something that looks a little bit darker and you don't want it as strong as black, you can use the complement, which is the color on the color wheel across from the color you're working with. So red and green are complementary. Okay? So I hope I've given you some tips about working on this, the little blue horse. I hope you have fun with it. Be sure you check out some books at the library about Franz Marc. There aren't any children's books about him except this Eric Carle book called The Artist Who Painted a Blue Horse, and it's got a lot of different animals in it because Franz Marc liked to paint animals in colors that weren't natural. They were more paint box colors. So keep doing that, and until next time, please keep watercoloring your world. Bye-bye.